Good morning, everyone. It is Thursday morning, 6:31. The market opened about 1 minute ago. I have another, my podcast for this week is talking a little bit about, we're going to talk a little bit about government benefits, and this will also go into my government benefits playlist, and will actually become part of my course, my advanced course on government benefits, which is especially important for families who have family members with special needs, because it can literally save you or make you thousands of dollars if you make the right choices at the right time. And a lot of those choices you can only make once, and once you make the choices, you have to live with the consequences. So look for that advanced course in government benefits, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, SSI, ABLE accounts, and all that. And anyway, that's what we're going to talk a little bit about, long-term care and Medicaid and Medicare, and how those programs work. Again, Ken Krager from Black Swan Financial Advisors. Thank you for watching my videos. There's my website, which is under construction. It should be live the end of June. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, and all these videos and every other video are for educational purposes only. So I've been meaning to do more. Like I said, I'm working on that course, advanced course on government benefits, and I've been meaning to do more of these videos. But I saw an article the other day, and it was talking about, can a nursing home take my IRA? Can a nursing home take my retirement money that I spent my whole life working on? And the article really addresses a really important issue, because when it comes to the things that can ruin somebody's retirement, and the most likely thing to happen, and a very catastrophic thing to happen, has to do with long-term care costs. So healthcare cost, everybody knows, it goes up every year, way more than inflation usually, and it just increases over and over again and just keeps going up. And that's for regular health, health insurance, health coverage, going to the doctor, going to the hospital, whatever. But long-term care is like a nursing home, or it's when you need extra care. It can be in your home. But you need extra care because you can't do some activities of daily living by yourself, and maybe you're recovering. People have a stroke, or they fall down and they break their hip or whatever, and they end up needing long-term care. And long-term care is dang expensive, and it just keeps going up. And unless you have like permanent life insurance, like a whole life or a universal life, where you can maybe tap into the death benefit to get some money for your long-term care, or you have a long-term care policy, which is actually pretty expensive, and you can't buy them until you're old, which is kind of stupid. But long-term care right now costs, it can be excuse me, can cost $100,000 or more a year, and the average person that needs long-term care will need it for 2 to 4 years. It's kind of maybe sad or whatever. Women typically need it longer than men, and maybe that's just because the men die faster. But that means that you could drain your retirement of $300,000 or $400,000 just like that. You fall down, you break your hip, you have a stroke, and the next thing you know, you're $400,000 poorer, and that just destroyed your retirement, and you can't live on retirement anymore, and then your health is such that you might not be able to go back to work. So not only is it physical, but also cognitive disabilities such as Alzheimer's and dementia, and like I said, stroke, that can also require some long-term care help. And the good thing is that we're all living longer, but the bad thing is that usually that means that those last years in life can be pretty debilitating years, and so even though we're living longer, more and more people need long-term care. Medicare does not cover long-term care. Now, I want to say that over and over again because people think that, oh, I'll have Medicare and I'm okay. Medicare does not cover long-term care. Medicare is like your employer's health insurance that you might have had when you were working, and it covers your doctor's visit, or if you go to the hospital or whatever. It's for short-term healthcare costs, and it's not free, but it will not cover that $400,000 that you get if you have to go into a nursing home or you need to have some skilled services come into your house to help you. Medicaid will cover long-term care, but I would argue that it's not the best quality of care, okay? Because not all the doctors and nursing homes and stuff take Medicaid, but you have to be poor to get Medicaid, okay? Medicaid is a needs-based program, and you need to be poor. And so we're going to talk about that a little bit. But what is Medicare for? Again, people 65 and older, government program, it's health insurance. And most people might not know, but if you only have a certain time to sign up, like right before you turn 65 to right after you turn 65, and if you don't sign up on time, you sign up later, you'll pay a penalty. You'll have to pay money to sign up. Okay, and some people with disabilities or end-stage renal disease can get Medicare before they're 65, but for most of us, we won't get it till we're 65. And a lot of retirement health care, like my wife has the government health care covers her till she's 65, and then guess what? The government program goes away, and she gets to get Medicare. It's individual, each person. So, like when you were working, you could get your health insurance for your family or yourself, or you and your spouse, or you and your kid, or whatever. So Medicare, each person has to get it themselves, and it's not free. It's relatively cheap, but it's not free, and like I said, it does not cover long-term care. Okay, doesn't do it. So basically, that's like your work's old insurance. Okay. So Medicare coverage. What does it cover? Like I said, it will cover inpatient care, outpatient care. Like you can go to the hospital, you get your hip fixed or whatever. You fall down and you break your hip, or you have a stroke. You go into the hospital, you get care until they stabilize you, and then typically when you were younger you would go home. But when you're older, the result of that illness or injury could be so debilitating that you need some long-term care services or hospice services, or first you go into like a rehab facility and you have to work on your rehabilitation. But Medicare only covers that for a certain number of days. And then if you don't have long-term care coverage, you'll pay for it yourself, and it will be very expensive, right? So again, so outpatient care, going to the doctors, labs, etc. Preventative services, flu shots and things like that, meds, if you get the medical part. Okay, the prescription drug part. This is you have to add this actually, and it costs money. And there is a thing called Medicare Advantage that is kind of like your healthcare plan now if you have an employer one. But please talk to me about if you're getting ready to get Medicare, on what your options are, because there's lots of options. They're all supposed to provide very similar benefits, but they can cost different amounts. And so contact me and we can talk about it. Costs. Okay, Medicare is divided up into 4 parts, and you'll also hear other parts of Medicare, but these are the main ones. And so Part A is hospital insurance, and usually there's no premium, but you still have to pay deductibles and co-insurance and stuff, right? Medicare Part B is it's the medical insurance, like going to the doctor, okay? You have to pay a premium, and it's based on your income, or how much money you have coming in. And so the richer you are, the more you get to pay. Part C is Medicare Advantage, and basically this is kind of like a PPO or a HMO, where you don't have to worry about Medicare Part A and B. You get Part C and it's all kind of bundled together. See right here? Often has D. Because if you get A and B and don't get D, then you get to pay for your drugs yourself, all of the cost of your drugs. And I know my mom and dad and stuff, some of those drugs cost like hundreds of dollars a day. $100 a day, right? So that's, that's the main parts and the costs associated. So, if you talk to your mom and dad, if they're older, they're paying a premium for their Medicare. They're paying, hopefully they have Part D, the prescription drug, but they're still paying for that. And then when they hit a certain amount, they have to pay everything above that. And so it's not free. It's cheaper, but it's not free. That's Medicare. So let's talk about Medicaid. And I used to get kind of confused about Medicare and Medicaid. I didn't really know what they were for. And when my daughter Addie, who has Down syndrome, was born 21 years ago, I had to find out about what Medicaid is, right? Because actually, especially as an adult, she's covered under my employer health insurance, but she's also covered under Medicaid because she has a permanent disability. And now that she's an adult, it's based on her own income. So this is really important for you families who have people with special needs, right? When they're children, Medicaid eligibility is going to be determined by the parents' income and assets. And so for most people, the child's not going to qualify for Medicaid. Now, if you're a guardian, a grandparent, or something like that, then the child could very well qualify for Medicaid, okay? So Medicaid is a need-based system. It's based on your income and your assets, and you have to be poor, okay? You have to really, really be poor. It's a joint federal and state program, and the states run Medicaid. And every state is different, and I can't stress that enough. Some states provide a lot better Medicaid benefits than other states, okay? So you need to check with your state. And your eligibility is based on your income and your assets. And like I said, you have to be poor, okay? In Arizona, if you make more than $36,570 per year for a family, you will not qualify for Medicaid, okay? If you have assets that are worth more than $2,000 with some special rules around your house. So if you have a car, or actually some things can get excluded, but if you say you have a retirement account, right? You have an IRA. This goes back to the question about, can the nursing home take my IRA? No, the nursing home cannot take your IRA, but the government can, okay? So what happens, right? Medicaid is mostly free, but some people may have to pay some small parts of it, okay? So please check your states. So let's get into some details. this is where I talked about, can the nursing home take my IRA? The nursing home can. It's a private company, but the government can claw back or take back benefits that were paid to Medicaid recipients, okay? And this is super important because if you have a spouse, one person gets hurt, goes on long-term care, they get Medicaid or whatever, and because Medicaid pays for long-term care. Not the best care, but it'll pay for it. So what happens is a family, an individual will have to do what they do, pay down. They have to use all their assets. So say you have $200,000 in your IRA, you're going to have to spend that on your long-term care costs until you run out. And then you'll be able to get Medicaid, okay? So remember when I said this $2,000 asset right here? Okay, so my daughter is on Medicaid. She cannot have more than $2,000 in assets. That means if you add up all of her money that she has in her savings, checking, anywhere, right? She can't have more than $2,000. And so we're really careful about that. So she gets SSI every month. It's almost it's like $900 a month. In 2.5 months, she's over $2,000. She pays rent. She buys her own clothes. She goes to the movies. She spends her money, because if she didn't spend her money, she wouldn't qualify for Medicaid. Okay, so if you have a child with a disability, or you have a disability, if you're on Medicaid, you need to make sure that you don't go over that asset limit, and so you can keep your benefits, because if you lose Medicaid, she would lose her health insurance. Okay, and for her Medicaid, she gets doctor's visits and everything through Medicaid. Okay, now there are some special rules about a surviving spouse if they didn't need Medicaid, and they can keep some of the assets. But the last thing I just kind of want to bring up here, this is a really complex topic, so you should talk to me. Okay, so please contact me and we can look at your personal situation and do this. But this is the killer. Okay, Medicaid in all the states has what they call a look-back rule. So Medicaid is a federal program administered by the states. And what happens is people, they get into retirement or whatever, they're doing great, and then somebody gets sick, and then all of a sudden they need long-term care, and all of a sudden they're paying tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars in healthcare costs, and it's starting to eat into their retirement, and they want Medicaid for long-term care. But they have too many assets. They have that IRA that's worth $200,000, and they don't want to lose their IRA, so they give it to their kids, okay, or they put that money somewhere else, and they divest themselves of it. And they think they go to apply for Medicaid, and they say, look, I have less than $2,000 in assets. My income is really low. I apply for Medicaid, and Medicaid will look back 5 years. Okay, so you would have had to have moved all that money around 6 years ago, or 7 or 8 years ago, for it not to be included in your eligibility criteria for Medicaid. And so for most people, this happens pretty quickly, and they're trying to shelter or hide their money and give it to their kids or whatever, and Medicaid won't allow it. So what'll happen is you won't qualify for Medicaid, and you'll have to pay all those long-term care expenses yourself. So anyway, quick and dirty. Like I said, I'm going to have an advanced course on government benefits. I mean, all this stuff Lots of different topics. Worksheets, when should I start my Social Security and stuff like that. And we'll do worksheets and we'll walk through it. It'll save you thousands of dollars and it won't cost very much. So anyway, thanks again. Have a great day. And we'll see you later. Bye.